Your kind's filth stains everything you touch, and get out before your presence ruins this place like it ruins everything else.
She was publicly humiliated at this hotel, told she didn't belong. Tonight, she walks back through those doors with a secret that will rewrite every rule, like if you love justice. And subscribe for more stories where karma wins. The music pulsed through the grand ballroom of the Seacliff Hotel, a relentless throb beneath the glittering chandeliers. Crystal glasses clinked, laughter rang sharp and artificial, an expensive perfume hung thick in the air. Among the swirling silks and tailored suits stood Maya Vance, a tall black woman in an elegant emerald gown. She moved with quiet grace, a guest of a colleague at this charity gala for the city's elite. Her dark eyes observed the room, taking in the opulence, the subtle glances, the unspoken lines drawn across the polished marble floor. She felt the weight of being an outsider, a feeling familiar but usually manageable. Tonight, however, the air felt charged, brittle. Across the room, near a towering ice sculpture melting slowly into a silver basin, stood Cynthia Harrington. Cynthia was a fixture in these circles, known for her sharp tongue, brittle beauty, and an inherited fortune that fueled her sense of superiority. Her blonde hair was swept into an impossibly tight chignon, her pale skin flushed slightly from champagne. She watched Maya with cold, calculating eyes, her lips curled in a sneer barely concealed by her crystal flute. Cynthia whispered to a cluster of rapt listeners, her gaze never leaving Maya. The whispers grew louder, punctuated by stifled giggles. Maya felt the heat rise on her neck, but kept her expression neutral, focusing on the intricate pattern of the Persian rug beneath her feet. She decided to get some air, moving toward the terrace doors, overlooking the moonlit ocean. The cool breeze promised relief. But as she neared the exit, Cynthia deliberately stepped into her path. The music seemed to drop a beat. The chatter around them dimmed to a low hum. Cynthia's smile was razor-thin. Well, she purred, her voice carrying clearly. Look who decided to grace us with her presence. Trying to find the service entrance, dear? I think you took a wrong turn. A titter rippled through her nearby admirers. Maya stopped, her body rigid. She met Cynthia's icy blue stare. Excuse me, Maya said, her voice low and controlled, though a tremor vibrated beneath the surface. Cynthia took a deliberate sip of champagne, her eyes sweeping Maya up and down with open contempt. Oh, don't play dumb. You know exactly what I mean. This isn't your scene. Look around. Does this look like the kind of place you belong? She gestured vaguely at the opulent room. The charity? Please. We all know you're just here to gawk. Or maybe hoping to snag a rich husband. Good luck with that. The cruelty was naked, designed to wound and humiliate. Maya's knuckles whitened on her clutch. She drew a slow breath. I was invited by Martin Reeves, Cynthia, just like you. We're all here to support the cause. Cynthia let out a sharp, humorless laugh. Martin's always been too soft-hearted, bringing strays. But charity starts at home, darling. Not with people who don't understand the rules. Our rules. She took a step closer, her voice dropping to a venomous hiss meant only for Maya. You stick out like a sore thumb. You don't belong here. You never will. You bring down the tone of the whole evening. Frankly, your presence is an insult. The words landed like physical blows. Maya felt the eyes of the room burning into her back, a mixture of morbid curiosity and silent agreement. That's enough, Maya said, her voice tight with suppressed fury. Move. Cynthia didn't budge. Her smile widened, triumphant and cruel. Or what? You'll make a scene? Go ahead. Prove me right. Show everyone exactly what you are. Loud. Aggressive. She leaned in, her breath smelling faintly of expensive gin. This party? This life? It's not for you. You don't deserve to breathe this air. Get out. Go back to wherever you crawled from. You are not welcome. The final words were spat out, each one a deliberate stab. The silence around them was absolute now, the music a distant thrum. Every eye was fixed on Maya, waiting. The humiliation was a physical weight, crushing her. Tears pricked her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She wouldn't give Cynthia the satisfaction. With immense dignity, Maya straightened her spine, her gaze locking on Cynthia's with a newfound, terrifying stillness. Without another word, she turned and walked, not towards the terrace, but towards the main entrance. Her heels clicked a sharp, rhythmic counterpoint to the hushed whispers that erupted in her wake. She didn't look back, feeling the stairs like hot needles. She pushed through the heavy oak doors, stepping out into the cool night. The sound of the party died abruptly behind her, replaced by the sigh of the ocean and the frantic beating of her own heart. The night air felt like freedom, but it tasted like ash. She stood on the grand steps of the Seacliff Hotel, the imposing structure looming over her, a monument to everything she'd just been told she could never have. She looked up at its lit windows, the party continuing without her, a world sealed shut. In that moment, the seed was planted. Deep, dark, and silent. It wasn't just anger. It was resolve. Cold, hard, and utterly focused. Cynthia Harrington had made a powerful enemy. Maya Vance would remember this night. She would remember every word, every sneer, every ounce of humiliation. And she would ensure Cynthia Harrington remembered it too. The ocean wind whispered secrets as Maya descended the steps, disappearing into the waiting shadows of the night. The party inside resumed its glittering rhythm, oblivious to the quiet storm that had just begun to gather beyond its gilded walls. Cynthia watched her go from a window, a smug smile playing on her lips, utterly unaware of the reckoning she had just set in motion. 2 months, the ocean seemed to murmur against the shore. Just wait 2 months. The 2 months that followed Maya Vance's expulsion from the Seacliff Hotel Charity Gala weren't marked by outward rage, but by a chilling, focused silence. She vanished from the social circles Cynthia Harrington dominated. Friends expressed concern, met only with Maya's calm reassurances and a newfound distance in her dark eyes. She wasn't broken. She was submerged, planning in the deep, cold waters of resolve. Her successful tech consultancy, previously a source of quiet pride, became an engine. Deals were closed with ruthless efficiency. Funds were diverted, liquidated, pooled with a singular, terrifying purpose. She researched the Seacliff obsessively. Its history, its finances, the intricate web of ownership held by a faceless overseas consortium desperate to offload aging assets in a shifting market. Her lawyer, a sharp woman named Evelyn Reed, accustomed to Maya's calm competence, found herself handling negotiations cloaked in unusual layers of anonymity and urgency. "This is unusually aggressive, Maya," Evelyn had ventured once, reviewing the final offer structure. Maya, staring out at the rain-lashed city from her minimalist apartment, hadn't turned. "It's necessary, Evelyn. Ensure it's done before the end of the quarter." The steel in her voice left no room for discussion. The acquisition of the Seacliff Hotel was finalized without fanfare, a discreet line item in business reports easily overlooked by the city's elite gossip mills. Maya Vance became the sole owner of the Gilded Cage, where her humiliation had played out. She didn't move in. She infiltrated. Initial visits were disguised as prospective event bookings. She walked the corridors, the grand ballroom, the terrace overlooking the churning gray ocean, with the quiet intensity of a predator reclaiming territory. Staff remained largely unchanged, unaware of the woman in the impeccably tailored pantsuit, observing them, memorizing routines, noting weaknesses. She met the manager, a perpetually flustered man named Gerald, presenting herself as the representative of the new, anonymous ownership. "Focus on excellence, Gerald," she instructed, her voice devoid of inflection, "especially for large events. We need to restore the Seacliff's prestige." Gerald, eager to please the new bosses, nodded vigorously, oblivious to the storm gathering behind Maya's impassive gaze. The plan crystallized with icy precision. Another charity gala, this time for a prominent arts foundation, was scheduled at the Seacliff. The guest list, naturally, included Cynthia Harrington, a prominent donor whose vanity demanded her presence at every significant gathering. Maya ensured Cynthia's invitation arrived, pristine and unquestioned. Then, Maya began her transformation. Not of the hotel, yet, but of herself. The emerald gown was discarded. For this night, she chose power, a severe, midnight black tuxedo tailored to perfection, its sharp lines echoing her newfound resolve. Her hair was pulled back, revealing the sharp angles of her face, her eyes like polished obsidian. She arrived at the Sea Cliff hours before the guests, walking the now familiar halls with the silent authority of ownership. Gerald scurried beside her. "Everything is prepared, Ms. Vance, exactly as you specified. The champagne is chilled. The orchestra is rehearsing. Security is discreet but present." Maya stopped outside the grand ballroom doors, identical to the ones she'd been forced through months ago. The sounds of the orchestra tuning up drifted out, the same melodies that had pulsed beneath Cynthia's cruelty. "Security is key tonight, Gerald," Maya stated, her voice low and clear. "I expect absolute adherence to the guest list and hotel policy. Any disruption, any guest causing distress to others, they are to be removed immediately, without fuss, but without hesitation. Is that understood?" Gerald paled slightly at her intensity. "Absolutely, Ms. Vance. Zero tolerance. We've briefed the team thoroughly." Maya gave a single, curt nod. "Good. I'll be observing closely." She didn't enter the ballroom. Instead, she retreated to a small, mirrored observation balcony overlooking the floor, a space once used by managers to oversee events, now her command post. From here, unseen, she watched the glittering scene assemble. Below, the ballroom bloomed with familiar opulence. Crystal chandeliers cast their cold light on silks and jewels. Laughter began to rise, a nervous energy replacing the orchestra's warm-up. Maya's gaze scanned the crowd, detached, analytical. And then, she appeared. Cynthia Harrington made her entrance as if the room belonged solely to her. She wore a blindingly white gown, a deliberate counterpoint to the surrounding glitter, her blonde hair cascading perfectly. She air-kissed acquaintances, her laughter loud and brittle, radiating the same entitled confidence Maya remembered so vividly. Cynthia moved through the crowd like a queen holding court, utterly unaware of the eyes watching her from above. Maya felt nothing resembling heat now. Only a profound, glacial calm settled over her. The trap was set. The hunter was patient. The party swelled. Champagne flowed. The music grew louder. Conversations buzzed. Cynthia held center stage near the towering ice sculpture, a different shape, but the same position of prominence. Maya watched as Cynthia gestured expansively, holding forth to her rapt circle. The humiliations of 2 months prior seemed a lifetime ago down there, forgotten in the haze of privilege. Maya waited. She needed Cynthia to feel secure, embedded in her element, before the ground vanished beneath her feet. The moment came when Cynthia, needing another drink, detached herself slightly from her group, signaling a passing waiter with an imperious snap of her fingers. The waiter, a young man Maya had personally briefed, approached. As Cynthia reached for a fresh flute, Maya pressed a small button on a discreet intercom panel beside her. Her voice, calm and amplified just enough to carry over the background murmur, echoed through the hidden speakers in the ceiling directly above Cynthia's position. Not thunderous, but clear, cutting through the party noise like a shard of ice. Cynthia Harrington. The name hung in the air. Conversations nearby stuttered. Cynthia froze, champagne flute halfway to her lips, her head snapping up, searching for the source of the voice. Confusion flickered across her perfectly made-up face. "Who?" she began, her voice tight. Maya's voice continued, smooth, devoid of malice, yet carrying an undeniable weight of authority. "You seem to be enjoying yourself." Again, recognition dawned on Cynthia's face, slow and disbelieving. She scanned the room frantically, her gaze finally lifting, locking onto the mirrored balcony. Even from the distance, Maya saw the blood drain from Cynthia's face as she saw the figure in black looking down. A murmur rippled through the surrounding guests. Maya. Cynthia breathed the name, audible only to those closest, her voice laced with shock and dawning unease. What were you doing up there? How did you? Maya didn't move. Her voice remained level, carrying perfectly. I'm observing the event, Cynthia, ensuring everything runs smoothly, especially regarding guest conduct. We have a very strict policy here at the Seacliff now. Zero tolerance for disruption, or for guests who make others feel unwelcome. Cynthia's confusion warred with outrage. We? What are you talking about? This is absurd. Security. Someone remove this woman from the observation deck. She's harassing me. She looked around wildly for Gerald or a security guard. No one moved towards the balcony. Instead, two large, impeccably dressed security guards materialized silently at Cynthia's elbows. They didn't touch her, but their presence was an unmistakable barrier. Gerald, sweating profusely, stepped forward from near the doors, his face pale. Cynthia whirled on him. Gerald, what is the meaning of this? Have her removed immediately. She's causing a scene. Gerald swallowed hard, unable to meet Cynthia's furious gaze directly. He looked towards the balcony, then back, his voice trembling but clear. I'm sorry, Miss Harrington, but Ms. Vance is the owner. She gives the instructions. The words landed like a physical blow. Cynthia Harrington staggered back a half step, her champagne flute slipping from suddenly nerveless fingers and shattering on the marble floor. The sound was shockingly loud in the sudden, dead silence that had fallen over the entire ballroom. Every eye was fixed on her, wide with disbelief. Owner, Cynthia choked out, her voice a ragged whisper. Her gaze snapped back up to the balcony, to Maya's impassive face. The arrogance was gone, replaced by pure, unadulterated horror and the dawning realization of her utter vulnerability. You bought. Maya didn't let her finish. Leaning slightly towards the intercom, her voice, still calm, still carrying that terrifying authority, filled the silent room. You were quite clear 2 months ago, Cynthia, about who belongs here, about the rules, about deserving this. Maya paused, letting the memory of her own humiliation hang thick in the air. Your presence tonight, she continued, her words dropping like stones, is an insult to the standards of this establishment. You're causing distress. You are unwelcome. She looked directly at the security guards flanking the paralyzed woman. Please escort Ms. Harrington from the premises. Immediately. The final word was a command, cold and absolute. The guards moved instantly, their hands firm but impersonal on Cynthia's arms. No. Cynthia shrieked, the sound raw and desperate, struggling weakly against their grip. You can't do this. This is my world. You don't belong here. You don't belong. Her screams echoed the very words she'd spat at Maya, twisted now into a weapon against her. The crowd parted silently as the guards began to steer the struggling, weeping Cynthia Harrington in her ruined white gown towards the grand oak doors, the same doors Maya had walked through in humiliation. Maya watched, unmoving from her vantage point, a statue of retribution carved from ice and shadow, as the woman who had tried to destroy her was publicly, irrevocably cast out of the kingdom she thought she ruled. The ocean wind, sighing against the hotel walls, sounded like a low, approving hum. The game had changed forever. The silence that followed Cynthia Harrington's expulsion from the Seacliff Hotel was profound, a vacuum sucking the air from the grand ballroom. The orchestra had stopped mid-bar. Crystal glasses hung, suspended halfway to parted lips. The collective gaze of the city's elite remained fixed on the grand oak doors long after they had swung shut behind Cynthia's struggling form and the implacable security guards. The only sound was the faint, rhythmic sigh of the ocean against the cliffs far below, a sound that now felt less like approval and more like the indifferent breathing of a vast, uncaring beast. Maya Vance remained on the observation balcony, a silhouette against the mirrored darkness behind her. The icy calm that had carried her through the confrontation didn't dissipate. it solidified. Below, the frozen tableau began to thaw into frantic whispers, shocked exclamations, and nervous glances upwards. She saw Gerald, pale as parchment, attempting to restore order, gesturing weakly for the music to resume. The hesitant strains of a waltz started, tinny and unconvincing against the weight of what had just transpired. Maya didn't linger. Her work here was done. She turned and walked away from the mirrored window, her footsteps echoing softly in the empty corridor behind the balcony, leaving the glittering chaos to fester. Downstairs, the party never truly recovered. People left early, their conversations hushed, their eyes darting. The story spread through the city like wildfire fanned by a gale, the whispered details growing more dramatic with each retelling. Cynthia Harrington, the untouchable queen of society, publicly shamed and physically ejected from the sea cliff by Maya Vance, the woman she'd cruelly dismissed months before, who now owned the very ground Cynthia had deemed sacred. For Cynthia, the humiliation wasn't just public, it was existential. The ride home in the back of her chauffeured car was a blur of silent, white-knuckled fury. Arriving at her immaculate penthouse overlooking the bay felt like entering a mausoleum. The familiar opulence offered no comfort, only a mocking reminder of the world she believed she commanded, now irrevocably shattered. She tore the blinding white gown from her body, leaving it in a crumpled heap on the cold marble floor, a symbol of her ruined triumph. Sleep was impossible. Her mind replayed the scene on a torturous loop. Maya's voice, cold and amplified, cutting through the chatter. Gerald's trembling betrayal. The feel of the security guard's impersonal hands. The shattering glass. The sea of staring eyes. The memory of her own shrieks. Asterisk, you can't do this. This is my world. You don't belong here. Asterisk, echoed in her skull, sounding pathetic and weak, the very opposite of the image she had cultivated for decades. The following days were a descent into a private hell. Phone calls went unanswered. Invitations dried up overnight. The social calendar on her tablet, once packed weeks in advance, became a barren wasteland. When she dared to venture out to her exclusive salon, her favorite charity board meeting, the atmosphere shifted palpably. Conversations died as she approached. I slid away. The warmth, the deference, the unquestioned acceptance, all gone, replaced by a cold politeness laced with pity or, worse, veiled amusement. She was no longer Cynthia Harrington, pillar of society. She was Cynthia Harrington, the woman who got thrown out of her own kind of party. The whispers followed her, tangible as cobwebs. Asterisk, did you hear? Security actually grabbed her. Owned by that Vance woman. Can you imagine? Serves her right. Always was a nasty piece of work. Asterisk, the humiliation festered, turning inwards, feeding a toxic brew of rage, shame, and a gnawing, terrifying sense of displacement. She belonged nowhere now. Maya Vance hadn't just removed her from party. She had erased her from the world she had built her entire identity upon. The luxurious penthouse felt like a gilded cage, the silence within filled with the phantom sounds of laughter and the echo of her own downfall. She spent hours staring out at the glittering cityscape, a city that no longer belonged to her, the once familiar view now alien and hostile. The seed of hatred, already planted deep, began to crack open, revealing something darker, more desperate, taking root in the fertile soil of her utter ruin. Meanwhile, Maya navigated a different kind of aftermath. Owning the sea cliff was no longer just a symbolic victory. It was a complex, demanding reality. Meetings with Gerald and department heads filled her days. Budgets, renovations, staffing issues, the mundane machinery of running a grand hotel demanded attention. The initial, fleeting satisfaction of seeing Cynthia ejected had faded quickly, leaving behind a peculiar emptiness and a low, constant hum of vigilance. She knew Cynthia wouldn't simply fade away. A woman like that, stripped of her power and pride, was dangerous. Maya doubled security protocols, Access logs were scrutinized. CCTV feeds were monitored with renewed intensity. She moved through the hotel with the quiet authority of ownership, but her senses were always alert, scanning faces in the lobby, listening for unusual sounds in the corridors. The hotel was hers, yes, but it also felt like the stage for a confrontation that wasn't truly over. One rainy Tuesday evening, weeks after the gala, Maya worked late in the newly renovated manager's office, her office now. The storm lashed against the tall windows. Mimicking the turmoil, she sensed brewing beneath the surface calm. Gerald had left hours ago. The hotel was quiet, settling into the rhythms of the night. She was reviewing security footage from the lobby, a routine check, when a flicker of movement near the main entrance caught her eye. Rewinding the feed, she focused. The timestamp showed 11:47 p.m. the previous night. The heavy rain blurred the exterior view, but a figure stood just beyond the shelter of the canopy. Tall, slender, wrapped in a dark hooded raincoat. The figure wasn't trying to enter. They were simply standing, staring up at the hotel facade. Then, slowly, deliberately, the figure raised an arm and pointed, not at the entrance, but upwards, towards the grand ballroom windows on the second floor. They held the pose for a long, unnerving minute in the downpour before lowering their arm, turning, and melting back into the storm-washed street. Maya felt a cold finger trace its way down her spine. She zoomed in, but the hood obscured the face completely, the rain rendering the figure a faceless silhouette of menace. Was it Cynthia? The height seemed right, but she couldn't be sure. The deliberate pointing at the ballroom felt like a message, a chilling reminder. Asterisk, I remember. I know where it happened. Asterisk. The next morning, as Maya arrived at the sea cliff, the storm had passed, leaving the air washed clean and sharp. Nestled amongst the usual overnight mail and invoices on her desk was a plain white envelope. No stamp, no return address. Her name was typed neatly on the front. Inside, on a single sheet of expensive, cream-colored paper, were 3 words printed in stark black ink. You think you won. Asterisk, asterisk. The paper carried the faintest trace of a familiar, cloyingly expensive floral perfume. Chanel No. 5. Cynthia Harrington's signature scent. Maya stared at the words, the cold certainty solidifying in her gut. This wasn't over. The public humiliation had been merely the opening move. The real game, darker and more personal, was just beginning. The victory she had carved from her pain felt suddenly fragile, a sandcastle facing an incoming tide. The sea cliff, her fortress, now felt like the epicenter of a gathering storm. The ocean wind whispered against the windows, no longer humming approval, but carrying a new, unsettling message. Asterisk, she's still out there. And she's not finished with you. Asterisk, the unsettling quiet was shattered. The eerie suspense had coiled itself tighter, waiting to strike. The discovery of the vandalized penthouse wasn't just an invasion. It was a declaration of war written in poison and glass. Maya stood amidst the wreckage, the acrid stench of the spray, paint clawing at her throat, the chilling echo of Cynthia's perfume hanging heavy in the ruined air. The cold fury that had fueled her initial revenge hardened into something sharper, more dangerous. This wasn't about humiliation anymore. This was about survival. Cynthia Harrington, cornered and stripped bare by her own downfall, had snapped. The polished socialite facade had shattered, revealing the vicious, desperate creature beneath. Maya didn't call the police immediately. Evidence needed preservation, yes, but more importantly, she needed control. She documented everything meticulously with her phone. The vile slurs, the deliberate destruction, the lingering trace of Chanel No. 5 on the crumpled note left amidst the chaos. See you soon. Only then did she summon the authorities. The investigation was swift, efficient, and ultimately frustrating. The building's security cameras had been expertly disabled during the time frame. No witnesses came forward. Cynthia, predictably, had an ironclad alibi, verified attendance at a small, private dinner miles away during the estimated time of the break-in. She expressed shock and horror at the news through her lawyer, a sleek predator in an expensive suit. Ms. Harrington is devastated by this violation and the horrific accusations being leveled against her. She condemns such hateful acts in the strongest possible terms. The words were smooth, rehearsed, utterly hollow. Maya knew. The perfume, the timing, the sheer, personal malice. It screamed Cynthia. But proving it was another matter. The system, it seemed, still offered Cynthia a shield. This shield, however, was flimsy against the court of public opinion. News of the break-in and the racist vandalism leaked, igniting a firestorm. Cynthia Harrington's name, already tarnished, became synonymous with toxic entitlement and suspected hate crimes. The whispers solidified into public condemnation. Sponsorships evaporated. Her cherished positions on charitable boards were quietly rescinded. Her carefully constructed world contracted further, pushing her deeper into isolation and paranoia. Maya watched this unfold, a grim satisfaction warring with the constant, low thrum of unease. The sea cliff, her fortress, now felt like a brightly lit target. Security was doubled again. Patrols increased. Maya herself became a ghost within its walls, her movements unpredictable, her office a secure bunker. She rarely slept at the penthouse anymore, rotating between secure hotel suites, her existence pared down to vigilance and the cold mechanics of running her empire. The victory tasted like ashes and ozone. A week later, a savage coastal storm battered the city. Wind howled like a chorus of lost souls around the sea cliff's cliffside perch, rattling windows and moaning through the grand old chimneys. Rain lashed the building in horizontal sheets, turning the world beyond the glass into a swirling gray void. Inside, the hotel felt unnaturally quiet, the usual ambient hum of guests and staff subdued by the weather's fury. Most guests had retired early, seeking refuge from the tempest. Maya, unable to shake a persistent sense of dread, worked late in her secure suite adjacent to her office on the administrative floor. Gerald had nervously reported all was secure before leaving, his face pale in the flickering emergency lights that periodically illuminated the corridors during power surges. The storm felt like a living thing pressing against the hotel, a perfect backdrop for the darkness Maya felt gathering. Midnight approached. The storm reached a terrifying crescendo. A violent gust shook the building, plunging the hallway outside Maya's suite into momentary darkness as the lights flickered and died before surging back weakly. In that split second of near-total blackness, Maya heard it. Not the wind, not the rain. A sound that shouldn't exist. A high, thin, chilling laugh. Female. Unmistakable. It echoed down the corridor from the direction of the grand ballroom, cutting through the storm's roar like a shard of ice. Her blood turned to slush. Cynthia. It had to be. How? Security was airtight. Moving silently, Maya slipped out of her suite. The emergency lights cast long, dancing shadows down the empty hallway. The laugh came again, closer now, tinged with hysteria. It drew her towards the ballroom like a malevolent siren song. She didn't call for help. Not yet. This felt primal, personal. She needed to see, reaching the heavy, ornate doors to the ballroom. She paused. The laugh sounded again, inside now, bouncing off the cavernous space. Taking a deep breath, Maya pushed one door open just enough to slip through. The vast ballroom was cavernous and dark, lit only by the sporadic flashes of lightning that illuminated the towering windows, casting monstrous, fleeting shapes on the walls and the polished floor. The storm raged outside, a furious spectacle. And there, in the center of the immense emptiness, stood Cynthia Harrington. She was drenched, her expensive clothes plastered to her body, her blonde hair a wild, wet tangle around a face twisted by madness and rage. She wasn't laughing now. She was spinning slowly, arms outstretched, shouting at the shadows. "Come out!" she shrieked, her voice raw and cracking against the thunder. "Stop hiding. I know you're here. All of you. Watching me. Judging me." She stumbled, catching herself against the base of a covered ice sculpture pedestal. You think you can take everything? My home, my life, my place. Her voice rose to a scream, competing with the wind. This is mine. You don't belong here. None of you. Ghosts, liars, thieves. She kicked savagely at a velvet-covered chair, sending it skittering across the floor with a screech. Maya remained hidden in the deep shadow near the door, a silent observer. Cynthia was utterly unhinged, a creature consumed by her own venom and the crushing weight of her unraveled world. She pointed a trembling finger towards the observation balcony. You, up there, watching, always watching. I see you. She lurched forward, then stopped, swaying, her eyes wide and unfocused. Smell it? She whispered hoarsely, a grotesque parody of a smile touching her lips. Smells like victory? Like her? That cheap, nasty perfume. She gagged, clutching her stomach. Lies. Everything is lies. This place is full of ghosts, your ghosts, whispering, laughing. It was then Cynthia seemed to truly sense Maya's presence. Her wild, rolling eyes snapped towards the shadows near the door. She froze, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Lightning flashed, illuminating Maya's figure. Tall, still, clad in dark, practical clothing, her face an impassive mask. Recognition, mingled with terror and bottomless hatred, flooded Cynthia's ravaged features. You, she breathed, the word barely audible over the storm. Then interrupted. You, ghost, thief, you took it all. She launched herself forward, not with purpose, but with the blind, staggering charge of a wounded animal. Get out. Get out of my house. You don't belong. You never will. Maya didn't flinch. She didn't move. She simply watched as Cynthia stumbled, felt her knees a few feet away, then scrambled back up, spittle flying from her lips with her incoherent screams. Mine, it's all mine. You're nothing. Dirt. You deserve nothing. Her words were the same vile poison she'd spewed months ago, now weaponized against her own crumbling sanity. Maya didn't need to signal. Her security team, alerted by her silent panic button the moment she'd heard the laugh, materialized swiftly and silently from the other ballroom entrance. Then, the head of security, a large, calm presence, stepped forward flanked by two others. They moved with practiced efficiency, not rushing, but closing the distance with undeniable intent. Cynthia saw them. Her screams hit a new, ear-splitting pitch of pure terror. No, don't touch me. You can't. This is my home. She's the ghost. She's the one who doesn't belong. Get her out. Get her out. She backed away, tripping over her own feet, falling hard onto the polished floor. She scrambled backwards like a crab, her eyes wide with primal fear, still shrieking about ghosts and thieves and things that didn't belong. Ben reached her first. He didn't grab roughly. He simply crouched, his voice low but carrying over her screams and the storm. Ms. Harrington, you're trespassing. You need to come with us. Now. It was the same calm, implacable tone used months before. No, you work for her. The ghost. She controls you. She controls everything. She's not real. She doesn't belong. Cynthia lashed out wildly, her nails raking Ben's forearm. He barely reacted, simply securing her wrists with gentle but unbreakable strength as the other guards moved in to assist. Her struggles were feeble, fueled by hysteria, not strength. They lifted her, not roughly, but with the impersonal firmness reserved for handling dangerous, unstable things. Her screams dissolved into ragged, choking sobs, interspersed with broken, whispered pleas. Not real, ghost my house, doesn't belong, please. They carried her, a broken, weeping mess in soaked, ruined finery, across the vast, empty ballroom. The storm's fury seemed to lessen for a moment, the wind dropping to a mournful sigh as they passed the spot where the ice sculpture had stood months ago. Cynthia's head lolled, her eyes rolling back, catching one last glimpse of Maya, still standing motionless in the shadows near the door. A final, Choked whisper escaped her, barely audible. Ghost. Then they were through the grand oak doors, vanishing into the storm-lashed night. Maya heard the distant wail of approaching sirens, the police she'd finally called. Gerald appeared, wide-eyed and trembling in the doorway, having heard the commotion. "Miss Vance, is she?" Maya finally moved, stepping fully into the dim light. She looked at Gerald, then at the spot where Cynthia had been dragged away, then at the storm raging beyond the windows. "She's gone, Gerald," Maya said, her voice quiet, devoid of triumph, only a profound, bone-deep weariness. "And she is never welcome here again." She turned and walked back towards her office, leaving the vast, empty ballroom to the echoes of madness and the indifferent roar of the storm. The ghosts, it seemed, had finally claimed their own. Dawn would break on a Seacliff hotel forever changed, its halls quiet, its ownership absolute, the unsettling mystery resolved in the cold, clear light of justice served. The ocean wind, finally calming, whispered only the sound of the tide receding, leaving behind an unsettling quiet, and the indelible memory of a woman broken among the glittering ruins of a world she thought she owned.